Because we always return for the big news, this is MuggleCast episode 273 for August 5th, 2014. This week's episode of MuggleCast is brought to you by Audible.com. Audible is the leading provider of audiobooks with more than 150,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, including fiction, nonfiction, and periodicals. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/MuggleCast. Welcome to MuggleCast episode 274. Eric, Micah, and I are all here. Welcome back, guys.
Hey.
It's great to be back.
Well, you know,
shall I say it's fantastic to be back.
Well, actually, Andrew,
yes.
You know, it is great to be here with both you and Eric. And you know, I wanted to apologize because I know we were supposed to be doing this earlier this evening, but you know, I only I work in New York City, and I only had planned on spending a few hours there. But
I get it. I get it.
That was smooth-ish.
That was smooth.
Judges?
Bit long of a setup, but I got it. So
you only meant to be there.
Yes, I was only meant to be there for a few hours. But
like 9 to 5 specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
like that.
One reason that we're here today. The past couple days have been a whirlwind for Harry Potter fans because J.K. Rowling decided a couple days ago, well, I'll throw a little riddle out there about Fantastic Beasts and see if the fans can figure it out. It all kind of started when J.K. Rowling tweeted a little update saying that no, not that pen and paper are her priority, though they were.
Oh yeah.
That she's tweaking a screenplay, which kind of suggested, by the way, that to me it read like she's finishing it up if she's just tweaking it.
I would agree with that.
And she also said she's finishing up a novel. Now that could be a whole other discussion. But
it's true. Working on a novel.
For now, we'll put that aside. And so then one of her followers said, "Oh, you should tweet a little." The follower said, whenever J.K. Rowling tweets, I need to take some time out of my day to dissect it and try to figure out if there's any clues in it.
Yeah. It was actually, I have it right here. It's Regan at Peruse Project on Twitter said, every time J.K. Rowling tweets, I stop whatever I'm doing and analyze it for an hour.
And then that triggered J.K. Rowling to say what?
See, now I'm tempted to. So she replied her, but she put like a period. I mean, look at how tech savvy J.K. Rowling has gotten now. By the way,
she's getting with it, but she still doesn't know emojis. So
yeah, well, emojis are another beast altogether, and not as fantastic. But J.K. Rowling said, okay, so period at Peruse Project. See, now I'm tempted to post a riddle or an anagram. Must resist temptation. ... Must work. ...
And then the next morning, she released it. Do you have it right there with you?
I do. Okay, here we go. I'm not paraphrasing. This is word for word. Okay, J.K. Rowling's tweet. Cry, foe, run amok, fa, awry. My wand won't tolerate this nonsense.
So at first she didn't say that it was an anagram.
Right.
There was a debate over whether or not this was some sort of like quote from the movie or what, but we assume that it could be an anagram because because of that person who tweeted at her the night before. Now, I don't know if I had some sort of like, I'm sort of like connected on a deep level with J.K. Rowling because that night I happened to wake up at seriously like 3:30 a.m. It was really weird for me.
Whoa.
And I see this tweet. Because I check my phone real quick to make sure nobody's died or anything, and I see this text. So I've text
you
notifications.
Just wake up at odd hours of the night and be
but
like,
it doesn't
has anybody died?
Well, you know, I figure when phone's right there, I may as well check.
Oh yeah. Well, that's true.
So I have text notifications on. I can always see when J.K. Rowling sends a tweet, and
it's
so I
a useful
see this.
feature, Micah.
Yeah, Micah, you could use this. And then
I think his point is I don't follow her.
But then I'm laying in bed for the next 45 minutes trying to figure out what this means. And I lost like an hour of sleep that night because I not only did I wake up randomly. Anyway, this is besides the point. So
yeah.
J.K. Rowling starts dropping these clues and whatnot, and before you know it, we finally get to the answer. This ended up being a whole big thing. J.K. Rowling, according to her, only intended this to hold fans over while she was finishing her screenplay and finishing this book. But then I guess it started making headlines all around the internet, and I guess she maybe just got wrapped up in the excitement too, because especially today, Tuesday, she was tweeting nonstop.
She was tweeting. She went so far as to tweet fans wrong answers and even make fun of really cleverly, really hilariously some of the responses that people were guessing to her.
Mm-hmm. It was pretty entertaining.
It was extremely entertaining. I mean, you were right to call it a whirlwind. It really was a whirlwind that, as you said, even she got caught up in it. It was a fun today, especially the day that we're recording this, Tuesday, the 7th. It was just a fun, really, 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 really fun day to be on Twitter, to be alive, to be following J.K. Rowling.
So the answer ended up being Newt Scamander only meant to stay in New York for a few hours. Period. That's it. Now, in another tweet, J.K. Rowling said that this was the first line of a synopsis. Not the script, just a general overview of the story.
Not the script, it's a synopsis. So
well, it's very much in the style of J.K. Rowling. He only meant to spend but a few hours there.
And then this happened.
And then, right, exactly. So we know it's going to lead into a very interesting story for Newt Scamander, and it's clear that he's going to be in New York well past when he intended to. And it'd be interesting to see, is that going to be the entire first movie? Will he be only here in the States and in New York, or will he go elsewhere? But I do agree with that. I know I mocked you a little bit, Eric, but it's always interesting to me how she can really just captivate not just a fan community, but so many different people, how they just lock in whenever she says anything. It doesn't matter what she does. Yeah. She tweets, she puts something out there in the public, and people just immediately latch onto it, and a whole discussion. It was like, having her website back from years ago.
That's true. You know what? I did want to say
clues about book titles and release dates.
Yeah, I did want to say that this felt a lot like those old days with The Door, which is why I was actually really hesitant to try and solve the Enneagram. In fact, I didn't. I just enjoyed reading the wrong answers, and then because I was always the last person in through the door, the do not disturb sign was down. I could never figure out what to do. I always waited for the self-help guide. I just couldn't do it. So, but still, I was still excited that it was there. And Twitter is the new old J.K. Rowling's website, by the way.
Because she made it that way today.
Have you guys tried doing web? What's the old site, web Wayback Machine or something?
Yeah, I don't think it would work
going on JKR's old website.
I don't think it would work because it's Flash. I assume.
No, am I the only one who? Well, anyway, thought of it. But anyway, the old website where she used to have all these really awesome clues and games and fun with the fans, it was a long time coming until today, when it just feels like for the first time she really, really just had a blast on social media.
Yeah. And you hope it was her and not her assistant. But I think it was genuinely her.
I will say this, though. Her too.
I look forward to her doing those types of things in the future. I think she's sort of realized the ability that she has to connect directly with fans, where it's not so intense. It's really easy. She can pick and choose when she wants to respond. She can do things like this and just completely. Newt Scamander was trending in the United States, probably internationally. At least I saw that at one point. And yeah, I was at work today, and I was trying to solve this damn thing, and she kept giving more clues, and you knew the more she gave away of it, eventually somebody was going to solve it.
Yeah.
But I think everybody was pretty much set on the fact that Newt Scamander was part of it, and then New York was part of it. What you did with the rest of the letters was pretty much up to you, but I give all the credit in the world to that girl who solved it, and I'm glad that people finally started retweeting her and favoriting her instead of just J.K. Rowling's response to her, because I think that she deserves the notoriety for it.
Yeah. With that said, I think a bunch of people figured it out at the same time, but it doesn't really matter. Because I know MuggleNet tweeted it about the same time, as did somebody who followed me, and I did a search on Twitter for the exact phrase, and they all sort of showed up at 147. So whatever. But going back to the point about
then forget everything I just said.
No, it's still a good point. But
yeah, MuggleCast tweeted from MuggleCast that Georgia.
Yeah,
Eleanor
that was me.
Georgina Eleanor.
I looked up who showed up first in the list, but who cares? It doesn't matter.
Well, actually, what's interesting, I'll just say this really quickly, is that the sort of the benefit of that is that J.K. Rowling is now following that person.
Is she?
I think so.
Oh yeah, I do see that. See, well, okay, I'm happy for that girl Emily, but
now you're pissed.
No, I'm not pissed. I think that's fine. Good for her.
You're gonna curse her out when we're done with the show.
No.
How many people did JK? How many look this up? How many people did she
follows?
Follow?
49 people.
Oh my god, that would be awesome. I would be all over her feed all the time. That would be awesome.
So I think that this did teach J.K. Rowling something, that it is very easy to get fans excited through Twitter, but it's also a blessing and a curse. I mean, some media outlets were way off their rockers today, calling it, it's going to be a new Harry Potter book that she's announcing, because you could like sculpt the anagram and get like new Harry coming or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was embarrassing. Entertainment Weekly and a couple other sites really screwed that up, I thought. But this, I have to say, I know we like to hate on Pottermore a little bit, but I seriously feel like in the 3 years that Pottermore has been around, there's never been this level of excitement on that site. What J.K. Rowling did in 2 days on Twitter, Pottermore has not been able to accomplish in 3 years. And I think there's this disconnect between what J.K. Rowling, what people love about J.K. Rowling, the mystery, the excitement, and her former website, and Pottermore. It's just the excitement is not there on Pottermore. And I mean, she could have released this through Pottermore, but I think she loves Twitter now. She gets it. She sits there in her rocking chair on her balcony, sipping some tea, petting the dog, and she just loads up her phone and, starts playing with the fans. And it's fun because you can actually comment on Twitter and you can see real names, and with Pottermore it's just the community is not there.
Well, I did want to say she is I mean, I knew we all knew this, but she's a master of the 140 characters. I mean, each one of these tweets, it feels like she's not even trying or like has to like worry about what she says. Every one of these tweets is like perfect, and it fits in the given space. She manages to have such a what I want to say is she manages to have such a overt, like hilarious, great sense of humor, even though Twitter is limiting.
I'm betting the person who taught her Twitter told her that she has to put in 140 characters in order for the tweet to actually go through.
That would be mean. That sounds like something you would tell her. We're going to continue talking about J.K. Rowling's anagram in just a moment, but first it's time to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks with more than 150,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, including audio versions of many New York Times bestsellers. Now, for listeners of MuggleCast, Audible is offering you a free audiobook to try out their great service just in time for fall, when instead of holding a book, you're going to want to keep your hands inside your pockets to stay warm. It's cold everywhere. And I have 3 awesome recommendations for everybody this week. This is the benefit of doing a podcast every couple of months, because all these great books come out while we're away. First of all, Gone Girl, now in theaters starring Ben Affleck. This is the #1 bestseller on Audible.com. A fantastic movie. If whether or not you're seeing the movie, you should definitely read the book. That is what I hear from everybody. Second, a book that was just published. This is going to be huge with our audience, I think. The Blood of Olympus, The Heroes of Olympus, Book 5. It's the 5th and final book by Rick Riordan in the Percy Jackson series. You definitely want to check this one out. I know a lot of readers on Hypable were very sad earlier this week because it's the last one in a series. And finally, another recommendation, The Maze Runner. Of course, this was just in theaters recently. It still is in theaters. Getting great reviews. Readers of the book are very happy with it, actually. There were some changes, but everybody was generally very happy with it. So those 3 recommendations, there's 3 excellent choices right there for you. You can get any one of these for free by signing up at audiblepodcast.com/MuggleCast. Again, Gone Girl, The Heroes of Olympus Book 5, and The Maze Runner. Get any one of them for free. audiblepodcast.com/MuggleCast. As for this anagram, what any ideas? The problem is we don't know much about Newt, but this is certainly an interesting question. Why did he come to New York? So he was only planning to visit for a few hours, but why did he... J.K. Rowling says circumstances ensured that he remained ... for the length of a movie anyway. So
he will be here.
I had a guess.
First movie.
I kind of had an idea, but then it kind of got foiled. Is I was thinking like, oh, so if he only meant to be in New York for a couple hours, I'm thinking like very Muggle-minded, like, oh, it's a layover, right? Like he must be heading to L.A., or something, because he's coming from London. But then that was actually destroyed by the fact that it's the Wizarding World, right? And you can probably just take, I assume an extended flu network would take you anywhere in the world. So like New York wouldn't necessarily be a layover kind of place. You could get in the same distance or the same amount of time you could get to New York. You could also get to Georgia and Los Angeles and anywhere else you want to go, I assume. So maybe not that, but
I think it's more on the path of my gut theory is he went there to go research some beasts. So when the movie opens up, we're going to see him arriving in town, and he's there to investigate some beasts. Who know which they are. And then, obviously, that's where it starts getting more foggy. So what are these circumstances? Did he start to realize that a bunch of beasts were there? Did he meet a new character? I don't think it could be a love interest, even though I wrote that in my Hypable article. I mean...
What's that?
It just seems a little too predictable for J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think you're going to have some sort of Fantastic Beast incident in New York City that's going to require his attention. It's
like King Kong level.
Yeah, like a King Kong or Godzilla. We're being a little bit.
So it's going to be some sort of incident towards the beginning of the movie to start things off with a bang, and it requires him to hang around longer because he maybe has to get a hold on this beast.
Yeah, he's knowledgeable clearly about many of these beasts, and I think that maybe he's Ace Ventura.
Now that you but now that you say Godzilla, I'm just thinking that this like unknown magical creature just is found lurking in the sewers of New York and begins to threaten the whole city. I'm just thinking like along those lines.
It's going to be interesting to see the balance between the magical world of New York. We still don't really know if it's New York City, but presumably it is. So the balance of the magical world in New York and then the Muggle world, like, is it going to be, how often are we going to see the magic around New York
versus him in like a hidden,
like in a Ministry of Magic type place
versus a public place that we recognize.
Right.
Like I imagine if they don't have, I'm going to put this out here. I'm going to put the cards on the table. If they don't have a monster like ravaging through Times Square scene, I'm going to boycott the movie.
Well, remember Times Square is not the same back then as it is today.
That's the 20s, 30s. Yeah, okay, I get it. But I do want to say that New York, it works on many levels because New York is a cultural hub. Even like back then, New York was a huge cultural hub, and it's where everybody landed who immigrated from anywhere across the Atlantic as well. And so it makes sense that there would be a wizarding presence there no matter what. Like that's why it works. That's why I assume it's the city that she's talking about.
Yeah.
The other thing that kind of came to mind from a historical standpoint, you obviously have we know that it takes place right in the 1920s. Is that what we're?
Yep.
We were told, and the First World War comes to an end not too long before that. So, like, I think around 1918, and then towards the end of the 20s, of course, you have the Great Depression. So I wonder, does that at all play into why he has to stay in New York? Does something happen
Like the stock
that's
market
tied?
crash is really just a giant dinosaur type creature like crashing into the Wall Street
Yeah,
building.
giant dragon just it Gringotts however many
fun.
years earlier.
It's fun
So,
to speculate.
but
So
I think you could. It could be you could have the tie-in of real life events that are going on, because certainly there were parallels that we drew with Voldemort and his rise to
Oh,
power.
well, J.K. Rowling likes to do that. She likes to have this hidden magical world and then show how when things get out of hand, it manifests itself. It shows up. And like even muggles who don't usually notice nothing, do they, are seeing this stuff happening. So I think there will definitely be, I want to say like a profound like stock market crashing type reaction that was secretly caused by magical means that we're going to learn. Like, because that's just J.K. Rowling. That's what she does.
so
I like to think.
So then, and I mean, this other tweet that I read, circumstances ensured that he remained for the length of a movie anyway. The reason I want to bring that up is because J.K. Rowling, of course, is, Warner Brothers is hoping to make a trilogy out of this. So for the length of a movie, she says, does that mean he's going to be going elsewhere by the end of the movie? He's going to be heading out of New York? And then I started thinking, well, could he be in a different area with all three films? So this one's in New York, one of them's in England, and then a third one somewhere else. Because didn't we know about Newt that like he travels the world to learn about creatures?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, the new bio is still very like anything she writes in the film is like I feel like she doesn't have a lot that she needs to worry about conflicting because there isn't all that much about Newt. But what there is about Newt, we did already read on a former MuggleCast.
yeah.
But I think that whatever, I mean, it really works out because wherever he was headed at the beginning of the film, where he got delayed, he can just head there, wherever that is, at the end of the film.
Right. So I'm looking at the Harry Potter Wikia again, and it says he got the opportunity to write this book. He jumped at the chance for extra money and the opportunity to spend his summers traveling the world. So he apparently was doing this every summer, traveling the world, and so maybe that'll work in somehow.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I think it's likely that the two following films will be set. I mean, they're obviously, I think they'll center around him. I think that's safe to say, and they may be in a different time. They may be 5 or 10 years later, maybe. But at that point, I mean, because she just gets to explore, because it has to be during his lifespan, during his ordinary, lifespan. So, but she could do like the 60s in Britain, which is very like Austin Powersy, kind of like a thing later, at some point, if she wanted to, with a future film.
Right. At which point you could start pulling in characters that we know.
Right.
And have come to know in the Potter series, at least the older ones.
For how unfamiliar with the character we are of Newt and the characters, that will obviously be supporting Newt on his journey, I'm just so excited by this premise, right? Wizard in 1920s New York. Wizard beast hunter, in New York in the 20s. It just sounds ridiculously awesome. And now, Andrew, one of the notes that you had here was that has it been a year since we found out about Fantastic Beasts?
Yes, it's been a year. September 2013 is when we first found out about this news.
So it's kind of like, I feel like we still don't know a whole lot about it. I feel like this is the biggest thing that we've had since the initial
I guess official information, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because, I mean, we're going to get to the David Yates story in a moment.
Oh, right.
And the release date. But yeah, I mean, this is certainly... I was kind of hoping that once people solved this riddle, then Warner Brothers or J.K. Rowling would have published the entire synopsis that she's referring to. That would have been cool. Maybe they'll do that once they confirm David Yates or something like that.
And especially if she's tweaking the script, it's in pretty good standing. It's in like a pretty good place.
Yeah. So hopefully within the next month or two. And see, all these tweets were also funny to me because it's like she did this to tide fans over while she was finishing the script.
But then immediately got stuck.
Right, but now she got tied up with this riddle. I mean, again, Twitter doesn't take too much time, and hopefully she spent a lot of the day working on it anyway, but it was just pretty funny to me that I think the plan was for her to be away for a while, and then it blew up the internet.
Well, she calls anagrams her spiritual home. She hashtagged, thank you for being the kind of people who get excited about an anagram, hashtag my spiritual home. So I think she left that conversation in very high spirits with, regarding Twitter and the people that she interacted with during this whole thing. So yeah, like she just kind of had this moment where she was overcome with her old self, like her old toy with the fans, kind of see what kind of a rise she could get. I mean, I'm sure she isn't even, I want to say I'm sure, but I figure she wouldn't even need to read like the E! Online magazine, like recap of what happened. But I think that,
I'm glad you brought that up though for a second. And I know Andrew talked about it a little bit before, but it's just such bad reporting on the part of these supposed reputable news outlets.
Like to go back and see just how wrong, like how not even
no, just the headlines that they've had in the last 24 hours, because they sold it as a new Harry Potter book. A lot of them did. And I mean, they really should know at this point that she is not, and has stated many times, has no plans to write another Harry Potter book. I mean, and she even stated as much, that this was about the movie.
Yeah,
so,
they do it for clicks, unfortunately. And it's
absolutely.
Sick. Like once or twice I can see okay, but they did this earlier this year with that new short story in the voice of Rita
From
Skeeter.
Pottermore.
Right, everybody was like, more Harry Potter. Oh my gosh, it's a new Harry Potter story. And then
it wasn't.
Right, and then they did it again with that Celestia that singer in the Wizard and Girl.
Celestina Warbeck.
Right. Yes, thank you.
Well,
it's on the tip of my tongue.
Here's a tweet from JKR, an example of something it doesn't say. She's talking about the anagram. I brung Bick Harry. You glad? Me go work now. No speak.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. That was kind of a snipe.
That's kind of saying, it's not about Harry. But she did also give the hints.
That came after all the media headlines came out, and I thought she was sniping at all of those who were, because that did get everywhere. So, anything else to say about this before we move on to some other stories?
I mean, just that I'm excited. I can't wait for every announcement. But really, just this was a moment, guys. And if you don't have Twitter, if you don't follow J.K. Rowling on Twitter, Two Eyes.
Now's the time, Micah.
Now's the time.
Talking at you.
This was a moment.
Able to take part in the fun.
You should. Right. And you just realize that this happened today, and the last 3 days, and it was amazing. And I feel like she's back, baby.
She's back, baby.
I made a deal with her, though. I would follow her if she answered my question, and she still hasn't answered my question. I wanted to know if there was ever a student that transferred houses.
Oh, well, you got to do it again. She has to see. You got to start sending it to her
twice.
Every other day.
He did ask twice.
Yeah, but you got to just keep firing it off.
Now
these people.
She's so adamant about it, and she even did mention, and I'm sure it was probably thrown out there prior, but I had no idea that Newt Scamander was a Hufflepuff, and she included that in one of her tweets today when talking about if he would run from something, and she said something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, but no, he's a Hufflepuff with a lot of courage.
Yeah, a lot of guts, I think she said.
Guts,
I did know he was a Hufflepuff, but bless her for saying something nice about Hufflepuff. So I'm going to add that to the book.
I think she did a great job, even from the tweet that you just read, Eric, when she was sort of making light of the answers that some people were coming up with. She was throwing out some factoids. She was really having fun with it, and I think that's... It's great. I mean, it's great to see that, you said that she's back, and maybe she is. Maybe this is yeah.
She's back.
Maybe this is the start of her being a little bit more
fear.
Interactive with the community. She's been replying to people more the last few weeks, maybe a couple months, And now today, the last 2 days, she's really been interacting with people, and hopefully we get more of those moments moving forward.
Yeah. Or it scared her away, and we're never hearing from her again.
No, I don't think she scares easily.
No, I don't think so either. I think you're right. So on the MuggleCast Facebook, I just posted a status a little bit ago saying, what do you think Newt Scamander only meant to stay in New York for a few hours? What does it mean? What's the second part of that sentence? Why does he have to stay in New York longer? Megan said he starts telling his kids the story of how he met their mother. It takes him longer than expected. That, I believe, is a reference to the CBS comedy. Anne said a hippogriff ate his plane ticket home. That could be feasible. It's the 1920s. It's probably easy to lose your ticket.
No ticket.
It's not on your phone anymore. Carrie says he discovers the labyrinth of underground tunnels, sewer system, and the creatures making it their home. See, I've seen this a couple times. I think it's too close to the basilisk thing in Chamber of Secrets.
Ooh, maybe, but the cool thing, Andrew, and I'm sure Micah can back this up, there are unused stations from like the early, when they were building the subways. There are entire subway stations that, well, it's much like the London Tube as well. There's entire stations that were built for and abandoned and like never, or like decommissioned, or like certain rail lines, like just below your normal everyday New York City. There are stations that you can't even get down into unless you're like walking the tracks. And like, I love the idea that it could be like a lair for a creature, but
Yeah.
I see exactly what you mean about it being kind of too basilisky, but I'll say we have to see. Like, I like the idea of them using the underground thing, because that's a thing.
Yeah. Well, it'd be a great way to hide from Muggles, too.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Oh, and
like
if there's so many of...
Yeah.
Here's a couple good ones. Ben says, I think it is likely he unearthed some plot involving the oppression of magical creatures, or magical creatures being used further to further the interests of some evildoer. Knowing J.K. Rowling, though, it is probably something much more complicated and clever than either of those.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's good, right?
I want to say that I want her to stay away from like a main bad guy in these.
I do
like,
too.
I want this trilogy to be more free and more lighthearted, only in the sense that there's not an overarching bad guy. Like, I want it to be more like, I mean, adventure films can have villains, right? But I'd much prefer that the villain is like a CGI like dragon than, well, although that happened with Smog, right?
Yeah. Well, wouldn't we also have heard about this villain already in the Harry Potter books too?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but like, also the books are very closely set in Britain. Like, it's very almost claustrophobically Britain.
And if this is an American villain, maybe we never heard about it.
But if he's only in New York for a year, I don't know.
I mean, I really like the point that was brought up by Carrie with the underground systems.
Yeah.
Because sort of the whole subway system was started in the early 1900s, and by about this time it should be pretty well developed. And as Eric pointed out, there are areas that never really were used or were abandoned, and so that could make for some really cool settings and sort of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle-esque in a way, I guess.
Well, also, I think the latest Spider-Man movie had something to do with an old abandoned New York City subway station.
Yeah,
with the Teddy Roosevelt's station or his train. But the other thing I wanted to say is that this is 1920s New York is post-industrial revolution, but it's closer to the time period. If like Hogwarts, you get to Hogwarts by a steam train, and steam-powered locomotive. Steam power came about mid to late 19th century, the 1800s, and I feel like the whole Wizarding World is kind of arrested at that point, where there were like steam train is like the most advanced technological thing that you'll find in the Wizarding World, and I want to kind of find out why, or I want to kind of find out because like I guess it would still in the 1920s it would still feel new, whereas in the 2000s when Harry Potter is set, it's old. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that something happened, maybe not like a cataclysmic event or anything, but the Industrial Revolution affected both the Wizarding and Muggle world, and the Wizards adopted what the Muggles did. But being set in the 20s, this new film, it would have been closer to when that actually happened, and maybe we'll just like learn some really interesting stuff about how the two sides interacted with in regards to technology.
One more Facebook comment here. Aisha said he was sent on assignment for the ministry but ended up staying because of the unconventional way magical creatures were being treated in the American magic world.
Ooh.
I like that idea too, because
Yeah.
kind of like a spew situation.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. I like that too. We have really good ideas.
Look, guys, we're speculating again about future J.K. Rowling plots.
Geez.
Who thought that would have ever happened?
Well,
Okay.
at least there's a chance that the Antipode and Opal can make it into one of these three
Oh,
movies.
please, Joe. Please put the Antipode and Opal for us. Please put that in one of your novels or one of your movies.
So, a little other Fantastic Beasts news now. It's been reported by Variety that David Yates is actually going to be the one directing Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. He, of course, directed Order of the Phoenix through Deathly Hallows Part 2, so he handled half of the 8 Harry Potter movies. This hasn't been made official yet, but it was reported in August 21st, and apparently they've been in talks with him since May. That's what the guy who broke the story said on a podcast that I listened to recently. So this has been actually happening behind the scenes for a while. I don't know what's taking so long. Maybe Yates is still like figuring out if he has the patience to do this.
Well, it's his current film, right? Because you pointed out on, I think it was the last MuggleCast, that he's at Leavesden, currently shooting Tarzan.
Right. So he's at Leavesden's where they filmed all 8 Harry Potter movies. I think I jokingly said, maybe Yates will be stopping by the production offices if they're at Leavesden to, consult on some Wizarding World things, because I'm sure Stuart Craig is going to be there, the set designer. So what was your guys' initial reaction to this? It was very split for multiple reasons. I mean, some people, didn't love any of his movies. Some people loved a couple. I personally did not think Order of the Phoenix was a good start for him. I did not like Order of the Phoenix. Favorite book, least favorite movie, and I just did not like the direction in that movie. So, what were your guys' reaction to Yates,
Micah,
being up?
Well, I can't remember where I had this discussion before, but having sat down across the table from him and interviewed for him for this podcast,
you have to say nice things.
I have to have a sense of loyalty to the man. Who reminds me of like Linus from the Charlie Brown.
That's 100%. Honestly, that's 100% accurate. Like, he is the most gracious, gentle soul,
and there's a little bit of similarity, just like in appearance between the two. But anyway,
I compare him to Winnie the Pooh because he's soft spoken and a little pudgy.
So,
you're.
I personally didn't have any issue, with Order of the Phoenix through Deathly Hallows Part 2, at least in, from an overall standpoint. Sure, there are plenty of podcasts out there that we've done where we've talked about the little things here and there, but, certainly not on the same level that I disliked Prisoner of Azkaban, and we can go on and on about that. But
I'm glad you brought that up.
But
sorry.
I will just say, I mean, people are going to say that they want sort of this new and fresh feel to everything, and that when you bring in somebody who's already worked on half of the series, it's hard to really get that new feel because as much as you want to keep the magical world and you want to keep that feeling that you get every time that you see Hogwarts show up on the screen, you also are going into a different type of film with a character that we know very little about. But I will say, for as much as people want to jump on, bringing back David Yates, David Heyman is being brought back as well, and he's been there for all 8 films. So it's really unfair to get on the case of somebody like Yates when really Heyman has had a much larger role
Yeah,
in the
blame
production
him.
of all of these films. No, he's been there from day
Remember, we've
one.
also no, he's the shepherd. I like to think of David Heyman as the shepherd.
But you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I get it. The director
Well, I
is
get
always
your
going
point.
to.
Certain people would take comfort, Micah, in knowing that David
I'm
Yates,
one
who's
of them.
worked on four of
I'm one of them.
and the later four Harry Potter films are some of my favorite Harry Potter films ish, But I think that what I want to say, and this is not against David Yates because I love the guy and I think I love what he did technical wise. I love the montages and sorry, I just do in Order of the Phoenix, and I love certain camera angles and certain things that he did with the later series, but world builder is not as much a description I would give to him as a director as I would Alfonso Cuarón. And I don't like Prisoner of Azkaban. Everybody knows that about me as a movie, but Alfonso Cuarón I think would still be my first choice of former Potter directors to direct Fantastic Beasts the movie, because he has that, it just translates really well. He has that capability of really expanding and defining an entire world.
But if you're talking world builder, aren't you talking Chris Columbus? Because
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was
Well,
saying.
is it Chris Columbus or was that
Stuart
Craig? Was that Stuart Craig? Was it the art department that had? Because I really want to weigh Chris Columbus.
Well, there's a good chance that a lot of these people are going to be back. When you're talking about somebody like Stuart Craig and really.
Oh, well, why couldn't they just co-direct? I mean, have Chris Columbus and Alfonso Cuarón and even Steve Clovis, bring Steve Clovis back. Oh wait, it's not set in Britain, so I don't know about that.
And bring Mike Newell as well into.
So
bring Mike
Chris
Newell,
Columbus will be yelling in the background, "Don't forget the world building" every 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I just think, because I feel like everybody should be back on this. I mean, I feel like there should be cameos.
Well, hold on, this isn't fair. Wait a second.
Okay.
So this
Andrew's
is
gonna step in.
I wrote what they call a think piece the day after this. David Yates story broke. By adding David Yates, they are now too big to fail because they are bringing everybody back. As many people as you could conceivably imagine coming back for this.
Maybe in the crew, but not in the cast.
Right. Well, but you don't want the cast. You got Yates, director.
No, you don't want the cast.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so you got Yates. You have J.K. Rowling writing the screenplay. We always have to keep that in mind. We've got Heyman. That's three huge names. And like we keep saying, probably Stuart Craig is going to be involved too. Presumably the costume designer. I mean, how many more people do you need?
Oh, I said Steve Cloves before. I did mean Mike Newell. Steve Cloves adapted.
So you want all the directors to come back? And
They
go
won't
direct?
need.
J.K. Rowling is basically doing Steve Clovis.
Yeah, well, they won't need they won't need Steve Cloves just because there's not a book to adapt. She's writing the screenplay. Like she's saving. She cut out his job.
So-
Sorry, Steve, you're laid off. But
Here's what I'll say though with J.K. Rowling though, if you're in her shoes, right, you're writing something that is about the world that you entrusted to David Heyman, and David Heyman took it and created really this 8-part series, and along with Stuart Craig and all the directors, there's probably something to be said, of course, for that familiarity and knowing that you can give this to those people and that they can make something very, very good with it. And I could also play devil's advocate and say this is going to do well anyway because it's Potter.
right.
But there's something to be said for that group of people because they took her story and on screen made it into the success that it is.
Yeah. And another thing to keep in mind is since we don't have a book to base the movie on, you're not going to be making these book to film comparisons. So
Right.
I think that's also going to improve everyone's feelings about this film when they walk out of the theater. If you're not sitting there being like, oh, they didn't leave in that scene, they forgot this scene.
And to a certain extent, that's always like without fail. That unfortunately is just always on our mind with the books.
with all book to film adaptations.
Yeah.
Truly.
But now it'll be more freeing, and you know what? I'm sure that'll be a relief for the director, whoever ends up directing this, for sure.
Yeah.
it'll be even more because it's like there's no. I wanted to say there used to be 3 steps, right? It's like JKR writes the book, somebody adapts it, usually Steve Kloves, except that one time, and then somebody else has to direct from the adaptation. But now because JKR is writing it, and I'm sure she's gonna give like the best direction anyway in the screenplay. I'm sure she's gonna write the screenplay like a book.
Yeah. It also makes me wonder. I wonder if she's going to be on set a lot. Because she wasn't really on set with the Harry Potter films.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, well, I think she'll totally visit, but like, because like even the writer, like their job is done once the script is done, you know? Like producers, you imagine having to be there like nearly every day. Directors, absolutely. Cast, absolutely. But the writer, like screenwriter, maybe not. But I'd like to think that she is going to be there every day.
I feel like she will be interested in being there more often since they got to make sure they get this right.
Right, because I feel like before, too, the adaptation, right, it was out of her hands. Like, she had written the books years before the films went into production. And then the films went into production. It was just like, okay, here's the... And she approved the screenplay and this, that, the other thing. But, like, there wasn't enough... There wasn't more she could do. Now, if there's, like, a question with the script or whatever that comes up during filming, they can just, like, Skype her or, like, call her up or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be talking to her a lot. So, yeah, I mean, as for the fandom, I think I did a poll. I need to find it. But I think more people were interested in David Yates doing it than not. Most people were happy about it. Let's see if I can dig this up.
I like his movies. I really do.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of the people who doesn't like Book 5 all that much, but I like Movie 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the whole second half of the film series. So.
Yeah, well, and I'm excited for this as well. I don't think he personally will be responsible for any particularly major problems because we aren't comparing it to a book. J.K. Rowling is writing the screenplay. All these people are coming back. So I just found the poll. 50% said yes, they like that David Yates is directing. 27% said no, and 22% said undecided. And rightfully so. I mean, we don't know much about this yet, so...
Oh yeah, I mean David Yates strikes me as a director who can take something and run with it, right? And like he makes it his own. That's not to say he doesn't make it, 'cause he does make it his own, but it's enjoyable. But it's very like straightforward, almost kind of thing. Like I'm trying to think of like if any of his Harry Potter films were particularly like contemplative, like everything. But that in part comes from them all being adaptations too, right? And they're all just like one thing has to happen after another because they're covering a whole year of history in a 2-hour film. But like, I don't know. I feel like in terms of like cerebral, I would probably go to after seeing Gravity, I would just go straight to Cuarón for it, and I'd forgive him partially for Prisoner of Azkaban.
So as we alluded to earlier, let's move on from Yates now. We knew that this was a New York Times report several months ago said that this was going to be a planned trilogy. That was the first time we heard it was going to be a trilogy. And then on August 6th, just a few days after we recorded the most recent MuggleCast, Warner Brothers announced a slew of mystery release dates, and the majority of them were for quote-unquote untitled DC films, referring to things like Batman and Wonder Woman, all these types of things. But then on November 16th, 2018, and November 20, 2020, there were two quote-unquote untitled WB event films. Now, a couple people, myself included, immediately jumped to the conclusion that these are Fantastic Beasts 2 and 3 because this is the same day of the year that Fantastic Beasts #1 comes out. That's November 18th, 2016. So these movies are apparently going to be spaced out 2 years apart from one another.
Huh.
But
like be on the same weekend?
Yeah, same weekend. It's that pre-Thanksgiving
Yeah,
weekend.
it's the golden spot. So like even if a movie's on its way out, it makes it into the new year.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a big date in cinema. The first two Harry Potter were there. I believe another one was there. The Twilight movies were there. Hunger Games are there now. So this is a big
I think
date.
Goblet of Fire was there, wasn't it? That's when we all got together.
Yeah. That's
and then the rest
first
were
live
summer.
MuggleCast. It's like week 47, is it, of the year? 47 or 52. That sounds right to me. It's like that. It's that same weekend for every.
It's kind of interesting to me because we know with The Hobbit right now, Warner Brothers is releasing them every year. For some reason, they want to place these 2 years apart from one another. I don't know if there's anything to be said for that, but
I think it depends how they approach it. If they're gonna, the Hobbit obviously was all shot at once, right? And then they just
except for
made
when
the
they
3 movies.
Yeah, they had to go back and film a bunch of stuff when they added the third.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's expected, but
see, I would think from a production standpoint, they would want to film them all back to back. That's one of the reasons they split Deathly Hallows into 2 movies, because they filmed it all at once.
But it would kind of be a delay, right? It would get them. I mean, because JKR, because this is new stuff. It's not. I mean, not to say it's not it's not an adaptation. We know that, but because it's all new stuff, it would delay the front end of the project. Because like JKR or whoever would have to write the follow-up scripts,
right? So
like
J.K. Rowling needs more time, which makes sense considering she's also writing other books.
Especially if she's going to write the second and third movie. But then also there's. I mean, I think no matter what, the production is going to, or post-production. Right? Yeah, the CGI and everything that they have to add in is going to take a long time, because I want these films to be. Oh wait, I was gonna say effects heavy, but then didn't they say they were using a lot of animatronics and practical effects during the filming for this?
I think you're confusing that with Star Wars.
Wow, it's possible.
Yeah,
you know what? I'm sure you're right. Wow,
Yeah.
I am. Okay. Well, I want that. You know what? Where do you guys stand on that? Let's ask you that. Do you think that the new Fantastic Beasts should rely on practical effects, which tend to stand the test of time better, think Jurassic Park, or CG effects, which also work when done well?
Well, whatever they did with Harry Potter, just do that again. Because I thought they looked great in Harry Potter, all the Harry Potter movies.
You know what? That was mostly animatronics, though. Buckbeak.
Well, then there you go. Yeah, right.
Everything
and,
except
the
Grop,
basilisk.
I think, was CG motion capture, and the giants at the end were like CG motion
the
capture.
dragon probably was CG.
No, that's a real dragon, actually.
Oh,
Which dragon?
That's good. That's great. They hired him.
The not Antipodean.
Well, I mean, you have
I think it's a
Goblet
mix.
of Fire, and then you had
And
Deathly
the one in
Hallows,
Deathly
Part
Hallows,
2.
yeah.
yeah.
Well, we'll know that they're using animatronics if they take the one off top of the top of the Diagon Alley expansion. It's like missing for a few months. We're like, where'd it go? They're like, oh, it's just away for repairs. Don't worry about it.
Trip.
It escaped. No, they would say something.
It's on
funny, right?
vacation in London.
They would say like it's union break or something. That's what they
Yeah.
would say.
Then when it comes back, its head is like moving and it can flap its wings. We're like, oh wow, okay, that was a cool break for it.
Okay, yeah.
With 2 years though, one of the things that came to mind though also is, how well the first one does. I mean, they could certainly play around with the release date a little bit if that first movie has a success that it anticipates. But if it doesn't do well, maybe they're spaced out so that they can cancel them if
or like
they need to.
Look, do you think do you think there's any universe, like in the theory of infinite universes, do you think that there's one where Harry Potter, like a Harry Potter follow-up film, doesn't succeed?
No. Well, I mean,
No.
where it's positioned right now, no, because again, Yates, Heyman, J.K. Rowling. I think in that.
Oh, and it's a proven weekend, right? I mean, it's
Right.
when 4 out of the 8 Harry Potter films, or like 5 out of the 8, I think.
And things like J.K. Rowling's anagram prove how alive the fandom can still be if she, it throws some fire on the flames. Throws some what am I trying to say? Throw some gas on the flames, something like that.
Yeah, ignites the spark.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's definitely going to end up being 3 films. Warner Brothers, of course, really wants this to be 3 movies, so they're going to do everything in their power to make sure it happens. Which is why I still want J.K. Rowling to write a little mini book, free ebook that introduces us to Newt. It'll get everybody talking. The media will be like, "Oh my God, new Harry Potter book," even though it's not. But that's okay because people will be talking about it.
Well, and we were talking about earlier about how it's been a year and what do we know, what don't we know. I mean, thinking about what we still don't know, we don't know the director for sure. That's true. But also any casting announcements. We still have so far to go in terms of Fantastic Beasts. In terms of the first film, even though we like to look ahead at the later films, I want to know who's going to be playing Newt Scamander. I want to know how that first movie is going to turn out quite a bit.
Here are the 4 things we know for sure. Here are the 5 things we know for sure. I just realized I misnumbered this. David Heyman is returning to produce. David Yates is returning to direct. we're assuming that's correct. Number 3, it will be released November 18th, 2016. Number 4, Warner Brothers is planning a trilogy. And then number 5, we learned during the initial announcement, is that there's a planned theme park attraction of some sort. And Warner Brothers is, of course, going to be going all out to, create merchandise.
To realize that.
Yeah.
6 is that it'll be set in New York.
Well, yeah, that too. And now 7 is her little synopsis thing today.
Yeah.
So that's what we know. A little other story not related to Fantastic Beasts. Again, J.K. Rowling on Twitter, dropping all the exciting info on Twitter these days. We didn't know her Patronus, what her Patronus was, which blows my mind. I would have thought we learned about this a while ago.
Yeah, you know what? It feels like that question could have been out there since book 3, right? Since 99, people should have been asking. Because I feel like you're right. That question should have been answered.
Or maybe
already.
Pottermore's book 3. Throw it in there somewhere. New from J.K. Rowling. There's Patronus.
Yeah. The Patronus thing, though, with Pottermore, and I do want to bring this up, is apparently there will be a test about what your Patronus is.
And that's another thing J.K. Rowling revealed. So on Twitter, she said, or somebody asked her, what is your Patronus? Now, this person, Micah, wrote the question in all caps. Have you done that? Maybe that's what you got to do to get your question answered.
She only answers questions with caps. I got it. All right.
No, it's if you ask your question in caps. She might.
The person who asked the question,
it's tried and tested this one time from Accio wand spells.
But then not only that, this person wrote, "Thank you. You help us every day. We are Potterheads until the end." So you have to write the question in all caps and then write a really nice message.
And kiss her ass.
Yeah, kiss her ass. Exactly.
I don't know, because all of that ass kissing. Whoa! I can't believe we just said that about a fellow fan. All of that additional lettering really only got she responded. She was kind of short in her response, though, right?
She's like she doesn't really want to answer it.
She's like, it's a pine marten.
So then you have to go and Google this pine marten because you're like, what the heck is a pine marten?
A pine marten.
It's an adorable little cat-looking thing. It's in the same family as minks, otters, which of course Hermione's Patronus, badgers, reference to Hufflepuff, wolverines, and weasels. So,
actually, it's quite a menace in the UK and Ireland.
Yeah, that too.
Wait. No, it's not a menace. It's a savior, right? Because I'm looking at the wordplay that you used in this Hypable article. The invasive gray squirrel. So the gray squirrel was a menace in UK and Ireland, and the pine marten got rid of the gray squirrel, or helped to get rid of. So it's like a Robin Hood of like a gallant knight coming to the rescue of UK.
Do you think she just said to herself, let me come up with the most obscure animal?
No. You know what? I think, although that would get people to reid, right? Isn't that J.K. Rowling's thing?
Well, I guarantee you, and I think I tweeted this at the time. I guarantee you, with the exception of the people who live in the UK where this animal is popular, nobody had any clue what this thing was.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's like, but there are regional animals. They just are. I mean, we know what dingoes are and kangaroos because they're fairly
because we live
known. No, but I'm saying like voles. Like, have you ever heard of a vole? Because I've heard of a vole.
I've heard of it.
More?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like an underground dwelling creature. It lives in burrows, but like that's a strictly like, I feel like we all grew up on the Northeast, guys, so I feel like that's why we know what that is, and I feel like it's a very geographically. Anyway, my point is like I feel like from the second that she invented the rules of a Patronus, like when she was planning for book 3 or even sooner, in the cafe on a napkin, she knew what her own would be. It's just that for some reason, years later, like throughout the years, and that somehow never came up.
Yeah, it is weird. But I like Micah's question too. Now I'm thinking about that. It's kind of I don't think you've read Divergent, but it kind of reminds me of Divergent when they switch factions.
Oh yeah, well he's got a great question. We retweeted from like everybody we know, like even MuggleCast, MuggleNet, everybody retweeted like his thing, and it still didn't get.
You want me to do this again tomorrow?
No, yes, and I'll do it too
this time.
We're gonna go crazy.
So you'll retweet me? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sure, whatever. Or well, I'll write it on the MuggleCast account. That's what I meant. Right on the
Oh,
MuggleCast
okay.
account. Yeah. And every day.
All right, every
day
day.
we'll tweet
Here we
it.
go.
Oh God, let's not anger her.
With
Okay,
a-
she's still got a ways to go.
With a new nice
I think-
comment.
Somebody replied to me saying probably not because it would somehow delegitimize the Sorting Hat, but
Yeah, if you go against the Sorting Hat, you're kind of a butt.
I can't imagine in all the years that that the school was around that somebody did not in
Micah,
fact change houses.
Let's settle this once and for all. I feel like isn't the answer already in the books, right, or on Pottermore? Because you can be a hat stall. Okay, we know that from Pottermore. There are characters who were hat stalls who but then also the Sorting Hat takes your choice into consideration. So doesn't it make sense that maybe they don't transfer houses, but you do absolutely have a say in the house you go into? Isn't that like the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like
No,
if the
because
Sorting Hat came to
you
you
grow
and said,
older, you could change.
so you're like, this
Certainly.
isn't working out for me. It's been like 2 years, and I still feel like I'd be
I feel
better
like I'm a
suited.
Hufflepuff.
Right.
but
Right,
being
or
Gryffindor.
like
That makes
somebody
sense. I think
says,
it's an interesting question.
Seamus is really bullying me. I can't live here anymore. I need to go be in Ravenclaw.
You know what, though?
Well, see, that's a human resources issue.
You know, also though, guys, I do want to say this: the classes, right? They did have classes with other houses.
Yeah.
Like, so,
Right.
I mean, they had potions with the Slytherins, which was terrible, but they had herbology with the Hufflepuffs. I feel like that in that way you would have friends in other houses. Like, I don't know, we see them as divided because Harry tends to stick to his own house until Luna and maybe like some others in year 5 or whatever. But I feel like you do interact with people of other houses, so there's no reason to transfer like normally, kind of in a way. I'm just saying, if she never replies to you, Micah, I want that to be like the answer.
I mean, I could keep coming up with questions, though. I could say, has anybody ever transferred schools?
Well, here's what we
Has
start
there been
thinking
a foreign
them up.
exchange program?
Start thinking them up because she's going to be doing interviews like absolutely crazy come Fantastic Beasts movie time.
But she needs to come
There are
on
going to be a
goddamn show,
bazillion
right?
interviews.
Yeah. For MuggleCast 275, we will have J.K. Rowling on our show.
Not enough. No, I've given up with that. She had her chance.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
How
One
about
other
you tweet that out and have people
well,
retweet it?
I'll get flamed for that.
No. The question if she'll come on the show. So
Oh, start doing that every day.
275, we want you on.
Yeah, we could.
Let's
So-
go.
To wrap up the show today, we actually have a little exciting announcement about a MuggleCast alum, I guess you could call him, Jamie Lawrence. He got engaged. Aww.
congratulations.
Congratulations to Jamie.
It's great news.
He got engaged to Sophie, his girlfriend of, I think, about 3 years? No, 2008. Oh, my God. It's been like...
6 years.
It's been a long time, yeah. So I met her at the Beetle the Bard event that we did in London in 2008. Or was that 2007?
I feel like it was 08.
Well, when
Yeah,
did Beetle the Bard... Wait, no. Beetle the Bard came out in 2007 because I recently looked this up.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
Huh.
It was published December 2007.
Oh, at the very extreme end of the year.
Yeah. Which is so weird that Beetle the Bard came out a few months after Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, that is weird. That's really weird.
So...
Huh.
Well, it had to. I mean, it was in the book, right?
Well, it didn't have to, but yeah, I mean, it did have to come out after Deathly Hallows.
Because originally it was just for one person that won the auction, right? She had a hand, but then she had to write special permission to get it to produce into a book.
Well, sort of. So she she made 7 handwritten copies total, gave
right.
them the 6 very important people in her life. The 7th she auctioned off. Amazon was the winning bidder, and they got permission. They worked with Rowling to publish it.
And she did get permission from the 6 other people who had the handwritten.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what I remember anyway. But yeah, so it's really weird. Well, congratulations to Jamie anyway.
Yeah, I forgot what
we
we were
miss you,
talking
mate.
about.
Please invite us to your wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I want to
And
get
congratulations to your sister as well, Andrew.
Yes. Thank you, Micah.
What happened to Becca?
She got engaged today.
What?
Yep. Big day in the MuggleCast family. And you guys are all invited.
Cool.
No, Micah, you can come if you want.
All right.
I mean, I only say that because you're near.
Have
Eric
do you
Hayes,
know
you're
her
invited to.
fiance? Do you know?
Yeah, I've met him a couple of times. He's a big MuggleCast fan. No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
It's
Go
weird to
hang
think
out with
I'm
Heidi
What?
at the wedding.
You're gonna hang out with Heidi, my mom?
Yeah, just say hi. What's up? I haven't
Okay.
seen her in a while.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
He's just gonna say hi. What's up? It's okay, Andrew. I guess he's gonna say hi. What's up?
Well, I don't have the date yet. I think it's before
Dear Mom.
Fantastic Beasts comes out.
Oh, okay.
Maybe she should do it in the gap. No, Jamie should do it in one of the gap years. November 2017. Between two Fantastic Beasts movies.
Yeah, I feel like it's not a stretch to plan life events in between two Harry Potter tentpole events. I feel like that's old hat for us.
I would.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for MuggleCast. Big episode, an hour long.
Oh yeah.
Thank you everybody for listening. We'll continue to do these new episodes as we have some interesting news to discuss. We even got in some theories today. No theory is safe.
That's right.
And what else is there to say? Let's plug stuff. Micah and Eric, what you got?
You know, just earlier before we sat down to record this episode of MuggleCast, we recorded our 242nd episode of Game of Owns, the Game of Thrones podcast, brought to you by WatchersOnTheWall.com. It's Micah and myself, our hosts or co-hosts on that podcast, along with Zach Louie, our friend for several years now, big Harry Potter fan, and Kate Welch, who's in the gaming industry in Seattle. And somebody outside my window is very angry or something.
I'm a very big fan of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But that's our Game of Thrones podcast. We're actually reading the third Game of Thrones book now in the off season between seasons 4 and 5 of the TV show. So go check that out. Actually, you know what? I want to plug. Sorry to keep hogging up the airspace here, but I recently became a co-producer, co-editor of the Improvised Star Trek podcast, and I want to give these guys just the best, the most credit I possibly can. If you, the listener, happen to also enjoy Star Trek, as I do more recently, Next Generation, Voyager era, these guys are the best. And they have a podcast. It's bi-weekly, just like MuggleCast used to be, and every 2 weeks they put out an episode, and they source episode titles from their listeners through Facebook, through Twitter, and you just give them an episode title and they create, like they have their own ship's crew, and they have experiences and events in space in the 24th century, just like Star Trek. And it's in jokes. It's a mix of in jokes and satire and improv. It's all improvised on the spot. And then the editor's job, the producer's job, is to go and put in sound effects and music and everything to make it sound and feel like an actual Star Trek episode with all the Star Trek stuff.
Cool.
So I did want to say it's called the Improvised Star Trek Podcast. Go check it out. It is on iTunes. And the website is improvstartrek.com.
Micah, Game of Thrones as well?
Yeah, I mean, Eric pretty much covered it. I would just say we're at Game of Owns on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then, of course, the website, gameofowns.com. So plenty of ways for you to connect with the show. And then if you want to follow me and hear my random
Please to
musings
J.K.
and,
Rowling
Careful,
every
he doesn't
day.
follow J.K. Rowling on Twitter.
and
guys.
snarky comments to J.K. No, I'm just kidding. I'm at MJT BAUM MJT Baum. So yeah, give me a follow. You never know what you're gonna get.
You know what's funny, Micah? I call it MJT Bomb, but I've never heard you call it that.
That's what I call it too.
Okay.
And I'm over at
Glad we're all in agreement on my Twitter handle.
Yeah, that was bothering me.
By the
that
way,
night.
you know, Andrew was the one who convinced me to get on Twitter way back in the day.
Darn right.
And he said, "Look, you just got to do it." You know, like
Just
I was
gotta do
hesitant
it.
about it, and he convinced me. And I remember when you first, I don't know how many years ago it was at this point, but when you first told me to join Twitter, and I had a BlackBerry back at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and I just remember I was out for dinner that night or something like that, and my phone just, I guess the setting was automatically turned on to let me know when I got a new follower. And I'm sure like you had pushed this out on MuggleCast and MuggleNet, all these other places, and my phone just literally did not stop going off for
Your
about
BlackBerry
like
was
4 or 5 hours.
crazy. Well, and now to this day, you still don't follow J.K. Rowling. It's super weird. You're gonna follow
and then
one day.
What was it? What was the catalyst, Micah? Why did you stop following her? You did it
She
like
was
on
so
a show.
boring.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because she
right.
really, honestly, I mean, she didn't tweet. She just put
Yeah.
a couple tweets
So he
out there.
protested by unfollowing. I think it
Well,
was
this is my
smart.
thing. Really quick, my thing is I'm not a proponent of somebody who goes on Twitter just to say they're on Twitter, but then not do anything with their Twitter account.
Right.
So, but now she's definitely been more active. So we'll see what happens.
Don't follow her until like the next episode. We have to have a big moment. All right, and then I'm over at Hypable, twitter.com/Hypable, twitter.com/Sims. I'm always tweeting about Harry Potter, by the way, because I know that's what people follow me for. So, and then of course I also do Hype After Dark, which is my weekly podcast. You can go to hypepodcast.com for that, and that is
I've been on that
$4
too.
a month. Yes, you were on it recently, actually.
Ooh.
Yeah, we talked about Kevin and Laura. Laura, by the way, who's now in New York. Crazy.
Yes. How cool is that, right? Half of the old MuggleCast panel.
I'm
is-
happy for her.
When are you in New Jersey now, or are you back in LA?
No, I'm in LA. But next time I go back to New Jersey for the holidays,
You know
I'm
what? I'll
hitting
be
up.
back.
When are you back?
No, I'll be back in PA, and I'm coming up to New York Christmas week, like 20th to the 27th.
Oh, I smell a meetup.
I know. I smell. Well, now that Kevin and Laura are there too, right?
All 5 in one place.
Yeah, and I
Wow,
hear Kevin
all
and Laura are paying, so I'm definitely in.
Well, one of that.
One of the
Never
two.
mind.
I have an article queued up from Hypable that I'm ready to read as soon as we finish this. To the 15 Charmed cameos to surprise and delight you.
Oh yeah, I don't even
I
watch
love-
that show, and I was shocked.
I know. Well, it's written by
Seriously.
Karen Rout, and I'm happy to see number 2 here on the thing is Oded Fair, who I love from The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. So
Oh, okay,
I'm
cool.
gonna read this article as soon as we're done.
Awesome, thank you. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and again, we'll be back when I don't know, Newt Scamander's announced, or J.K. Rowling drops the full synopsis. One of those two things, probably. So we'll see everybody next time for episode 275.
5.
Yes. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.